Nice to see your friendly faces again. It's been a little while. First I wanted to announce, or I had mentioned when Senator Scott was here about the creation of a new position here at the city, emergency management coordinator, something that Captain Kinsella, myself, and Chief Craner have been talking about and stewing on and working on for several months now, about having just a waking up every day concerted effort on emergency management across the city. And we have great partners at the county and Chief Craner. We could not, the city and the residents of the city could not have asked for more from Chief Craner, trying to do two jobs at once, to try to be your fire chief, and when a hurricane's coming, also have to manage and coordinate all of that. And she could not have done a better job. To be able to work hand in hand with Chief Craner, to have that extra bandwidth, because we know that the types of impacts, whether it be hurricanes, floods, snow, or anything else, that it is a huge lift, and we want to have that extra bandwidth. And so I'm very, very excited to introduce to you Robert Hess, who is here. He'll be working under Chief Craner's supervision, and he'll be available to you afterwards if you'd like to speak with him. He comes to Pensacola from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, where he most recently served as the Chief Emergency Manager with the Vicksburg District. And he had numerous civilian assignments with the Department of Defense, and has completed 20 years of service with the U.S. Coast Guard in 2016. And of course, his number one job will be to ensure that the city's ready to go and trained to respond to emergencies. And he'll also be our liaison with the county's EOC. So very, very excited to have Robert on board with us. And again, we'll make him available to answer any questions for you afterwards. Since I hadn't seen you guys in so long, I've got a long list. I'll try to prioritize these things and move through them quickly. 4th of July celebrations, for the most part, seem to go off without a hitch. We obviously big crowds downtown. We did have, our PPD did report several issues with large crowds of juveniles taken to the streets after the show, with a handful of arrests, but again, no major issues, and Mike at PPD can get you all of the details. A recycling update, you guys may have seen us post. We do have recycling cans back out in the field finally, out from under storage areas for us and back into citizens' hands. The last update I got, I know we were well over 500 signups, and of course growing every day. Certainly appreciate y'all's ability to get the word out for us. We just, to make it memorable and easy to recall, you don't need to find the QR code. cityofpensacola.recycles.com. If you go there, it brings you right to the recycling page where you can sign up, the phone number, and all of that. So the mailers have also gone out, and there'll be more mail coming soon. But recycling is back. And one point of clarification, and we're going to make sure it's crystal clear on the website. A second garbage can on the same pickup day is also an additional $8. So if you want the same volume of garbage that you already have now, you can do that. In the generations previous to this administration, if you wanted a second black can on the same day, you paid a second account. You actually paid an entire bill twice, which never really made sense. We've certainly identified that when we were analyzing what we wanted to do with recycling as something that we were going to fix, which we have. So now, for just $8, we're already there picking up your can. Certainly that makes no financial sense that we would be charging a citizen double the price for a second black can. So and you can also set it up with sanitation to have all three if you wanted. If you wanted a recycling can and two black garbage cans, you got a family of 10 or whatever you need for all that type of volume. We are affording that option to everybody. So you can call the number or go to that website, and that'll get you all the information that you need, cityofpensacola.recycles.com. The Childcare Summit obviously had that great kickoff with the Miami-Dade folks here in May, and sharing their Thrive by 5 initiative. And the second meeting will be in this room tomorrow morning. And we'll be gathering really a lot of the same people, and the goal of that is to come up with what those real actionable tactics will be. So if we've identified problems, and I feel like we did a good job of that in May, what are the tactics to help solve one or two or three of those problems? You guys have heard me say many times that I'm more focused on, I'd rather do one or two things really, really well and for us to see a result than try to do 15 things that don't really have a result. So that'll be really the guidance in the morning that I'll be giving the folks in there, is to say, if we identify 2 issues, let's try to do what we can to solve those 2 issues, and so we can have progress and have momentum to continue and grow and expand that. So looking forward to that conversation again tomorrow. And the Bay Center meeting, of course, Thursday at 9 a.m. Looking forward to that, and hearing from Smith G Studio about the district vision and hearing the questions that the council members and county commissioners may have for that. So that's 9 a.m. of course at the Bay Center on Thursday. And we have a lengthy agenda because we're in once a month city council meeting, so I think we just went through the agenda. I think there's like 40 items on it, and that tends to happen when we only have the one meeting in the month. But just a couple items of note that you guys will see that I want to mention. We got another addendum for Lot 7 at CMP for Valencia. My goal was, we had one extension to try to figure out parking, and I'll just have to eat crow and say we had a second extension just to figure out parking. I'll have to tell the council that, and certainly appreciate their understanding. It's just a very complex situation. It can be overcome, I believe, or we wouldn't be extending it. But it's a very complex situation with lots of people that have lots of different ownership of spaces and what the needs of Valencia will be. So we're working through that. There are no other lease terms or anything that we're even negotiating, nothing on rates, nothing on fees or any of that. All of that has been worked out and has been worked out for quite a while. It's just getting down to the piecing the puzzle together of the Lot 4 parking lot and trying to be able to let these developments happen without having to invest $20 million into a parking garage. That's really the goal, or at least not having to do that yet. So you will see another addendum, and I'll certainly I think I will tell the council that this is, I know I promised it last time, this is my double promise that if we can't figure it out off this extension on parking, then we really will just kick it down the road. So looking forward to trying to get that done. I've got a few other little things. I wanted to give you some parking update data. I just, we had enough of a sample size. If you guys recall, we changed the hours and the added spaces that were paid in August. So, obviously we're into July now. We've gotten a pretty good sample size of understanding who our customers are and what's happening. Just want to give you a couple points on that. So since August, city residents are, of all the users that had transactions in parking downtown, city residents are 14% of that. 86% of the people of the customer that makes a transaction, 86% of those customers do not live in the city. So they could live in the county, and we have it broken down by zip code, but they could live in the county, they could live in Kentucky, they could live in Montana, but they do not live in the city. If you go to revenue, total revenue generated since August, 79% of parking revenue is generated by non-city residents. So only 21% of the overall parking revenue that's coming into the city right now is being paid for by city residents, 79% coming from non-city. And then the other way to look at it would be just total transactions. So we talked about total users, we talked about revenue, and then the 76% of all transactions. If you just add up how many sessions that take place, 76% of those are by non-city residents. So you guys have heard me say, why we're going this road, as painful as it might be for me in my inbox and everything else, is because when it's time for that $20 million parking garage, when it's time to reimagine Palafox Street, when it's time to do all of those things, my choices are, I can put it on the backs of 55,000 people who live here, whether they use downtown or not, or I could try to recoup dollars from people who don't live here, who don't pay city tax, who aren't investing in that infrastructure, and try to get some revenue generation from those folks that are enjoying downtown at what I consider to be at $1 an hour. I don't get a lot of complaints on cost. I think it's more technology and more getting used to something new. So, I don't know what the bed tax numbers are, but I don't hear, if you think about it from a percentage standpoint, I would be surprised if bed tax is more efficient of a way to bring in revenue from non-county residents. I mean, 76, 79, 80, 86%. I mean, I think that's a pretty efficient way, the same way the bed tax is supposed to be money collected from folks who don't live in Escambia County or Santa Rosa County or wherever. I would put these numbers up as efficient as those might be. I don't know what they are, but that is the goal. Is for us is it's a user fee, and whether you're from Kentucky or Montana or you're from the city, it's a user fee, and it's people only paying it when they come downtown. So those are numbers that have a very large sample size over. I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of transactions. One other point to make on that, or I want to bring up, we're still aggressively moving towards permits. And I can give you a little more detail. We're looking, it could be as soon as August, could be into the fall. We're working on some of the back end stuff that just we don't really control because the last thing we want to do is roll out a permit program where the doesn't work. That'll cause us a lot more pain and headache. So we want to make sure we get it right, but I can give you a little more update on, or a little more detail on what two of the permits will be. There will be more. One will be, we will be offering to every city resident, they will have 50% off parking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, parking anywhere in the city. So they'll have to verify with Park Mobile with us, and more details on that, whether that's a power bill or something like that. But if you'll verify that you live in the city, and then your Park Mobile app will automatically only charge you half the rate, and no transaction fee. So it'll be a flat 50 cents. It won't be 50 cents plus anything else. 50 cents an hour for city residents, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the city. And then the second is we're going to, for our city seniors, 65 and up, we're working out final details of it, but what we intend to do is have a permit for only city seniors. We'll probably start with one car per household just to make sure we don't flood the market too quickly. But the format will be that their license plate will be verified as a permitted license plate, so you won't actually have to mess with the app at all. And so that would be city seniors 65 and up. Again, city residents is what we're starting with. That's not going to be for non-city residents. We will have permits that are available for non-city residents, folks who work downtown, all of that. Those are going to be formatted a little differently. But we have enough detail, or we've confirmed enough that we're going down the road on these two that I can share that with you. But I don't want you guys to report that that's all we're doing. We are going to probably have some multiple zone ones.
So the seniors are no charge? Is that?
No, it'll be a nominal. We don't know the number yet.
Okay.
It's going to be a $10 a month, $15. I hear you. Well, no, it's not for 40 and up, Rick. It's 65 and up. So
John was worried.
I hear you. So yeah, I don't know the exact number because until we get the back end figured out, but it'll be something like a nominal monthly fee. Yeah. And I think the key is, because obviously I've gotten enough complaints now to kind of gauge, I do not get cost complaints. I really don't. I don't get anybody saying it used to be 50 cents and now it's $1. I don't rarely ever hear that. As you guys saw with the study, we're almost at half what we should be charging in our market based on household income and everything. We have no intention of raising it anytime soon, but we don't get a lot of complaints on cost. A lot of it is newness and technology, and I think a big part of it is, hey, app is different, even though about 92%, give or take, I have to look at it exactly lately, but 90+%, I could say safely, of our transactions come through the app. So even though there's pay stations at every location, and you can pay cash, that's a big confusing thing. You can, if you want to pay cash with quarters, they say, bring back the quarter machines. We do. You actually just walk to the kiosk and you can use cash. But about 90+% of our transactions are happening on the app. But it is an acclimation for folks that, used to have a machine and now it's this and now it's this. Totally get that. And so if we can close the technology delta that causes a lot of confusion or tickets or heartache, then certainly we want to do that. And that's really what we're addressing head on with the city senior permit, is to say, hey, these are city seniors who are helping pay for infrastructure. They pay city tax. And so, our goal is not to hit city residents for more money with parking. We want our non-city residents who are using our infrastructure, using our roads, using our parking garages. We want them to help us carry some of the costs to anticipate future growth. So So those are two of them. We probably will have your more traditional permits where you'll pick a couple zones and you'll pay X dollars a month, and those will be available to city and non-city residents. But just I don't want to share any details yet because we just don't know them fully until we see the back end.
What kind of timetable were you looking at for the first one?
I mean, I could tell you what we're shooting for. I don't want to be held to it yet. I think our biggest holdup right now is actually our business permits. And what I mean is, if you're a business on Palafox Street and you have your employees that have 12 spaces in the garage, we're working through a lot of technological issues on how those get set up. That's what's holding us up. But I would say as soon as August, that we could have something roll out, and then having everything rolled out this fall would be the goal. But there's too many things we don't control to say it's going to be an exact date yet. But that's pretty much everything I've got, and happy to take whatever questions you have.
Mayor, we understand there was a deadline for the Chappie James Memorial takeover. Can you give any update on that?
Yeah, there was. The deadline was June 30th for the original agreement, and Tim's done a great job managing that. Has been our point of contact and been in constant conversation with the foundation leadership. And what we've told them is if there's something amicable that just because that ended and expired doesn't necessarily mean that that we aren't ever going to consider it, or that it'll never happen. That it's not a statement from us that says it can't happen. But the previous iteration of the lease caused so much confusion about how they're going to fund it. Frankly, we need more information before I want to ask the city attorney to go work on another, kind of flying blind type of agreement that we may end up having to change 3 times. And that's really what we were faced with before was, well, if they get this type of money from the county, then the city needs to change this and then change that. I think for the sake of our bandwidth over here and all of that, let's get clarification on what the funding mechanisms are and what those need to be, and then let's have a conversation. I don't know why, again, I think I used this statement before, I feel like, we're the cart, and there's more horses that need to be worked out before we get to the cart. So we're ready and willing to have a conversation that makes sense. Some ideas that I know have been floating around, something like us being a co-sponsor of that. I certainly have some hesitation about because of the questions around the funding that the county has. If that becomes a legal battle, then certainly I'm not going to tie our taxpayers into, what if that money got pulled and then now the city's kind of a co-sponsor of it or something. So, if it's a ground lease, if it's clean, we're obviously going to be able to approve it. We want to see that they have the funding to finish it. All of those things, if those are met, we're still open to it. But we just didn't see a need to extend an agreement that clearly is going to need to be modified at some point. So we're going to kind of just take a step back, let some other details get figured out, and then we're ready to have a conversation when this is a little bit further along.
But you chose not to work those details out before the 30th.
Correct. Yeah, because there's too many unknowns. There are too many unknowns about funding, about where the funding's coming from, all of that we could try to have done. I just feel like I would have asked our city attorney to spend a bunch of time guessing at things that we wanted to redo in the agreement, and then us chasing our tail yet again on having to modify those things based on funding streams.
Well, have they submitted any kind of financial reports? Because that was a requirement of the agreement.
They have given us some. I'd have to defer to Tim on exactly what they've sent us lately. I've kind of handed that ball over to Tim to handle, but I know that they've attempted to. Whether that they're sufficient to meet what the agreement said or any of that, I haven't cross-verified that. But I wouldn't say that they're refusing to do that or that they don't want to work with us. I mean, I feel like they definitely do. But again, Tim can give you some more detail on it. Sure, if you want.
I actually just spoke with the new chair of the Chappie James Foundation today. So it's been my goal. Well, first, to answer your question about why wouldn't we do what was required to extend it, that why would we work with a document that was no way sufficient to get us to where we need to go. This is actually an opportunity for us to reset with everybody, with the county, with the county clerk, with the foundation, ourselves, with the TDC, to really figure out where do we need to be and where do we need to go. We know where we want to go, but how do we get there? Because there's a lot of disagreements on the legalities of how they get the money under the current construct. So my plan going forward is this is a wonderful opportunity for us to reset it all and start the conversation anew with everybody at the table. There's a phone tree going around with Chinese whispers about, well, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that, and what is it that you want here? Let's stop that. Let's get everybody down together and let's talk about it, about what really needs to happen. There's a lot of road bumps, but that doesn't mean that we stop. That doesn't mean that we put our hands up and say we can't get there. We just need to figure out how we get through those in a manner that the city can ethically and morally agree to and sign up to do. Because as we stand, there are items in the state statute that we have real questions about, and we're not going to sign ourselves up to put us into an ethical or moral situation where we're trying to be a co-applicant for monies that we are unsure whether by state statute it is legal for us to receive them under those circumstances or not. So we don't even want to go down that road until we have a clear understanding that we're doing the right thing for both the foundation and the city.
Well, it would be fair to say, because I think in talking to the commissioners, that universally people want to have some
Yep.
sort of memorial for Chappie James. It's just what that final product looks like
Yeah.
and how it's done.
I don't think there's any question. Anybody who were to come here and say to me, we don't want this memorial, that is, yeah, no. It's just how do we do it? How do we, if the money was coming out of the county's general fund, we're done, finished, no problem. But it's not. It's coming out of funds that have a lot of red tape associated with it. That's a color of money, and we can't change that color of money. We can only use it in a certain way. So we need to make sure, if we are going to be a co-applicant, and as the mayor said, there's lots of other vehicles we can do this, that we have to look at. And if us being a co-applicant isn't the right thing for the city, then let's try and find a way that it does work, that we can make it happen, that everybody, just trying to find a way to yes, that is ethically, morally, legally the right thing to do.
Have they opened their books to y'all yet?
They've sent us some documents, but really, it whatever they send us now isn't going to make much difference because the required funds aren't in there according to the agreement. All right, so it's not a question whether they send us them or not. They don't have the money that's in there, so it's a moot point.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks. All right. What you got?
Mayor,
Yeah.
a couple questions,
Thanks.
recycling, and
Yeah.
maybe TDC as well, but you had talked a year or so ago about using AI computer technology on the recycling collection. Is that still happening?
Yeah, so far as I know, I haven't had it come to my house yet or send me a note, but yeah, that's the process. That's the grant funding that we received. I know our team has been in conversation with the vendor, the AI vendor. Through that, I know they've been testing things. I don't have an up to the day update, but I've been, nothing has come across my desk that's changing that plan or delaying that plan in any way so far. So
And
yeah.
the idea was that the truck and the IT on the truck would screen a customer's collection.
Yes.
And then if it did not meet the standard, the customer would be billed or would be rejected?
Yeah.
How would that work?
Yeah, good question. So right now they would be notified. They'll get something in the mail that says, "Hey, we noticed this. Here's the 4 things or 5 things that we recycle." Just it's purely at this point in education. There's no plan at this juncture to fine or I think the only options that we'd be looking at would be, especially in this early stage, I think it's all going to be informational. It's going to be, hey, you get a note. Obviously, if somebody's getting a note every single week for 4 months, then we probably should have a conversation whether that person should, even have the option of a recycling can. I would imagine that's the next step. But from a fining standpoint, I don't think we're going down that road. I think once we're stood up completely, I think it's going to be either informational or if we have a serial problem with certain accounts, then we just say, hey, we can't afford to have this person contaminating an entire load of recyclables. we're better off them just not recycling, this house not recycling at all. So that's how we'll use it. We're not looking at any type of revenue situation or anything like that with
Do you
it.
have a projected start date when they would actually, or are they actually beta testing it now?
They have been testing it, just the equipment on the truck for a while now. So I'd have to get you we can get you an update on whether, it's starting back this week. Are all those cameras in full bore? I don't know that answer yet, but I can get it for you in terms of.
Mayor, part of your mission statement is to be the chief cheerleader for the city.
Mhm.
At the planning board, most recently,
Mhm.
the developer of 600 South Palafox
Mhm.
brought in a proposal to downscale the project.
Yep.
Saying that his mortgage underwriters told him that this market was on the verge of overcapacity for hotel rooms. What's your take on that? How would you reply to that?
It's.
And particularly given Valencia and their struggle now to make
Yeah.
Lot 4 work for them.
Yeah, 7 is theirs. But yeah, I hear you. Yeah, and we've got Tristan going up. First of all, when we start to talk about market saturation, that's probably a problem we would have liked to have had 10 years ago, to say, well, we got too many people interested in building hotels. 5 years ago, we didn't have anybody interested in building hotels downtown. So first of all, I think that's a good thing. Second of all, I take a different position. I see the comments publicly when someone downsizes a project. What we want is a project to pencil. At the end of the day, having, whether they should have 300 rooms or 220 rooms or 180 rooms in a project like that, we want the project to happen. And at the end of the day, when you're signing your name to however many tens of millions of dollars, there's no better self-policing of whether that makes sense than someone who's signing the check. This isn't just a playground where or a hobby. This is, people's livelihoods on the line that have to sign to a bank to say, hey, this project's going to work. So when someone comes to us and says, hey, instead of 200 rooms, they're going to do 180 rooms, the only time we would ever take any type of issue with that would be if they had asked something from us contingent upon, if they had said, give us X number of parking spaces, but we promise it's this many rooms and now it's 20% of that, obviously that would be different. But 200 keys, 180 keys, I want them to have a successful project that works in this market, period. And so what I don't want to do is talk about a project that never gets built. So I certainly give these developers, this is what they do for a living, that give them the purview to say, hey, this is what a bank's willing to sign off on, and here's what's not. And so I expect that project to move forward. I'm excited for that. I feel like they're very invested. They communicate well with us on things that are going on. We know ahead of time. We don't hear about it, in a planning board document that something's changing, and so I've had a good rapport and conversation with that particular group for the New World Landing, the Hilton project, and I fully expect that to come to fruition.
Base Center meeting this weekend,
Yeah.
you said that, was it Smith G
Uh-huh.
Studio giving the vision? What do you hope that this whole meeting, what do you hope to get out of it and the next steps after it?
Sure. So my goal I'm bringing, asked for an agenda item, it's a county meeting technically, to be discussed, is a presentation from Smith G Studio about what a district visioning plan would be. And to go back to my meeting with BOCC a few months ago, my desired outcome is not just doing a study on the pillars and on the seats and on the concession stands inside of the arena, but what happens around the arena. And if I'm the county doesn't run the streets and everything around the arena, they run the arena. So it's no blame on the county. They're focused on, as they should be, hey, we operate the Base Center, we operate the bed tax. What do we need to do to renovate this building? So that study with ASM is, on its way. And so that's good. All we've stepped in and said is, hey, at the city's cost, why don't we look at, before we start talking about conference centers and ice rinks and sports facilities and renovations, why don't we talk about what the greater impact of the entire area is and make sure that when we make a decision that everything's being considered, that traffic's being considered, empty properties being considered, empty hotels are being considered, all of that. We just want to make sure that someone has, an eye on the entire district, not just the renovation of the individual building. And that's why I'm not asking VOCC to contribute financially. That's us stepping up and saying that this is important. So the goal of the meeting is, one, for the county commissioners and the city council to hear what the vision, what will this get us? What's the deliverable? And then for them to ask any questions that they have or concerns that they have, that it's not just coming from me. Or, what does the mayor want to see? Well, what do they want to see? And so it's supposed to, really, my hope is that it's a sounding board for all the joint commission and council to share their thoughts. And if they all decide, hey, we don't think they're fit to do the job, then we'll bring another person in, and have them propose it. I want us to all be in lockstep, or as in much alignment as possible, that when this study's done, it meets the needs of everybody involved. So that's my goal out of the meeting. And there's other agenda items. I know there's one agenda item apparently about whether the city, who should operate the Bay Center. Those were the only one that I had put on was the one about the Smith G. But certainly looking forward to any conversation around the topic, because I think it's important to our citizens and important to our region, the success of that facility and the success of everything around it.
And that vision is the study, the district study, how it all looks. That's all the same thing.
Yeah. So I believe the hope is that the ASM study about the building, about here's how you can spend renovation money, I believe that's already, I don't know that it's being conducted yet, but I know that kind of been green lighted, right? And they think it'll take about 6 months or so. My goal was to have both of these happen concurrently. So it's not because I don't want to study this thing to death, just like a citizen doesn't want to. I don't want to spend 6 months on that and then another year on this, and then we'll just never end up doing anything. So the nice part is, I believe, is we can have both of these studies, one on the building, one on the district, happening concurrently, where we end up in the same place kind of at the same time, and us not waste any time. And so that was important to me before I even brought somebody forward. If someone came to me and said this is going to be an 18-month study, then I wouldn't even be bringing this forward. We've got to have something. We cannot study this thing to death. We've got to get something going, because at this rate, even at an aggressive timeline, we're talking about multiple years before you're going to start to see anything substantively happen. And so we got to get going, yesterday. So I'm glad we're having this meeting. Appreciate the county commission. It's not easy to get everybody in the same room at the same time, and appreciate staff making that happen. And I think it'll be a good positive step forward, I hope, for the whole region.
Mayor, on the Childcare Summit, what are some of the solutions that are going to be, talked about tomorrow, and you hope to, like you said, come away with one or two? Yeah,
I mean, my perception of I think the training and pay of childcare workers is a huge challenge, and when you really think about it, we all we drop our 1-year-old or our 4-year-old or 3-year-old off to go have a job and make money. Number one, it's so expensive that the money we're making at the job where we just dropped them off might be 30% of that check might be going back to that childcare facility, but just because of the sheer expense. But the second part of it is we're dropping off our sons and our daughters and our grandsons and granddaughters, and we're dropping them off with people who are in charge of the most special thing to us in our life, and we pay $14 an hour or we pay $15 an hour. And I don't think you could present that to any parent and then say that makes a lot of sense. But that's just the reality of the market. I mean, and so I was intrigued by how Miami approached that they promoted quality care and that they promoted retention. So, they had a pay supplement program for their workers, but what it required is, one, that your child care center, that facility that you work at, meets a certain quality standard, and two, that you haven't left, which I really like too, is that you would get a stipend every 6 months in the format that they do it, but you don't get it if you leave to go to another child care center. That continuity in keeping the same instructors and the same people at these quality facilities obviously is a big benefit to the community as well. So I don't know that it'll be exactly that, and that's what I want all the experts to figure out. But just giving you an example, I think we've got to address pay, and I think we've got to address the availability of facilities, business skill training, kind of entrepreneurship, really, of how do we make this work. And that's why the Alice Williams Library, in my mind, is something I'm kind of putting a pin in as a facility that we can put into the mix. who can we give that facility to take care of 0-year-olds and 1-year-olds that is so expensive. I mentioned to y'all before, the Brownsville, the $5 million HUD CDBG grant we have for commercial revitalization of Brownsville. We can buy buildings over there right now. Well, what stops us from making one of those units or 2 of those units childcare facilities, so long as you keep a certain quality and, you pay $1 a year, and if that's what makes the difference of us having quality childcare, then that's certainly a more than worthy investment on the city side. So I'm excited to hear what comes out of it tactically, but I expect that there's going to be lots of conversation around pay and training, and I think there'll be lots of conversation around kind of the business case of helping these businesses that happen to take care of our children be successful.
Mayor, going back to the parking stats you gave earlier, does the city have any kind of metrics or track anyway the utilization of downtown? Because you see the comments on social media like,
I'm not coming downtown.
Yeah, I'm not coming down anymore, that kind of thing. Is there anything you look at like sales tax receipts or anything like that?
I don't know that we have them geared down. So I don't know that you can get them all the way down to a zip code or a street or something like that. So that would be hard. Obviously, we keep an eye on. I think you're seeing sales tax plateauing, somewhat. Certainly not at the same trajectory that it was before around the country, around the region, around the state. But from a usage standpoint, that's why I try to be careful not to compare. If I came to you and said, hey, June of last year versus June of this year, we're up X% in transactions, well, that would be a little misleading because we didn't expand spaces and we didn't expand hours until August, right? So I really keep an eye on August, kind of before August and after August of 24, kind of 2 different things because of those steps that we took. That being said, we have not seen a dip in overall transactions when you start comparing to August. We see only an increase in that. And so when someone asked me at a Rotary Club, well, how's business downtown? And, I say, depending on the month, we're up 20%, up 30% in transactions. If somebody's protesting downtown, they're not telling their cousins or their uncles or whatever because they're coming to downtown. We certainly don't have any concern about that. And I think one important point to make, sometimes there's conversation about citations. I will compare to June in this sense because we're down in June of 25 versus June of 24. We're down 6.5% in total citations. And why that's important is the same point I just made, which is June of 24 was with way less spaces for way less time because we didn't make those changes until August. But even when you compare June of 24 to June of 25, we have 6.5% less citations than we had in the previous iteration. So that's the real data, not the hyperbole or the anecdotes about one ticket. That we're writing less tickets with more spaces and more hours, more sessions it's way more sessions than we had in June, and we're still writing less tickets than we were the year before. So we keep an eye on those things, as I've told y'all before. Obviously, if we saw something trending up or trending down that didn't make sense, we look at that and adjust and try to do the best that we can. It's why we're doing permits. It's why, we're trying to make all of this work, the best way that we can.
And then, what's the status of the downtown parking garage RFQ that you put out last year? Is that gone anywhere?
Yeah, we had selected someone. It's gone slower than, I just got an update yesterday. It's gone kind of slower than we wanted, going back and forth negotiating. Remember, the goal there was that we wanted to have someone that had no dog in the fight, so to speak, that could come tell us, what's highest and best use, or what would we want to ask for in a public-private partnership, that type of thing. As we've thought about it, and since then we had that public-private partnership conference, so the P3 thing from the U.S. mayors, we had that team come down and our entire staff was there. We kind of had a conversation about this after that said, really maybe the way to do it is to go out into the private market and say, we want a parking garage of this size that's activated or not activated, whatever the case may be. Let's see what kind of interest we get, and then we can always hire someone to analyze that deal on the back end instead of waiting, then doing a study, and then it not being what a private company may want to invest in. We might flip it. We might kind of start with what's the private market interest in doing a P3 for a parking garage, which by the way, a municipal parking garage is one of the most common P3s there is. It's something that has happened in dozens and dozens of cities all over. And so we may do that. We haven't finalized that yet, but we may look at, let's put it out to the private market. Let's see what they come back with, and to make sure that our taxpayers are represented well, and we might just hire someone to do an analysis of a proposal and kind of do that analysis on the back end, as opposed to trying to design something to really no customer on the front end. So it's just taken longer than we wanted, and we want to get going, and that's, I think, the direction I'm going to go.
Would that approach be applicable to not only Convivencia, but also Community Maritime Park?
I mean, that approach could be applicable. I mean, I think if you're talking about where could we physically put a garage, I think there's really 3 places you could put one in the city. One, and the one I'm focused on the most, is Convivencia, because of the potential growth at the port. Remember, keep that in mind. There's also, when you look back on old studies of putting a garage there over the last couple decades, one actually theorizes a walkover over the train tracks, that it becomes that parking deck would also help support port operations, which, when you only have 55 acres behind a fence, the last thing you want to do is waste that acreage on a big asphalt parking lot. You'd rather there be buildings and jobs and everything else. So I like the added intrigue of that, as well as not only are we helping supplement city parking, but we also could be adding an asset to the port. So that's one. Maritime is 2. And then what happens at the Bay Center? I mean, if a second facility goes into a parking lot, you got to replace that parking somewhere. So I don't mean that would only be the city's responsibility. I just mean, when you talk about parking garages, I think there's really 3 locations that not enough dominoes have fallen to say which one would go first, other than what I can tell you from my perspective is we're full steam ahead trying to make one happen in Convivencia. We're not really full steam ahead yet on what we're going to do at Maritime. Think about Parcel 5. If Parcel 5 goes under construction, there's 12 stories of steel and wood and everything that's got to go somewhere. And is that in Parcel 4? And we got to replace parking. Is that in some of the other empty parcels? So we got a lot of irons in the fire kind of right now at Maritime before we'd probably be entertaining a full deck or anything like that. And then we'll see what happens with the Bay Center conversation. I mean, I think that's a very legitimate conversation. What if we put a parking garage on the tech park that could help spur some development or growth? I'm sure somebody wanting to put an office building there, or a research center or something like that, might need some parking. Why wouldn't we put a parking garage on that side, have a walk over to the Bay Center or a conference center or ice rink, whatever happens there? So I think that's something to consider as well, long term. But hyper focused on Convivencia in terms of garages right now, and where your parking money is going is that parking money is going towards helping us supplement Convivencia at this point.
Mayor, we haven't had a chance to talk to you since the governor's budget.
Yes.
Has been sort of tidied up with most of the major vetoes in place and all.
Mm-hmm.
Give us your impression of the city's ask and how they turned out, and what does the future look like? I guess there was a fireboat involved, other things.
Yeah.
Do you think you did the best you could, given what Andrade said was a very difficult year?
Yeah, certainly I was reading the same things you guys were reading and didn't have high hopes about, being flushed with funding in our region for many reasons. As far as the fireboat goes, I wasn't losing any sleep over the fireboat because we couldn't get the fireboat run. So we were told that early on. So the only, I believe, I got kind of indirect ask, well, obviously with ShotSpotter, it would be the one that came up. That I believe the sheriff technically made but of course that would have been a big benefit. It has been a big benefit to us. So I guess I'm forecasting another year of this, and we'll see what happens. We'll do the best that we can. I'll tell you, I got lots of advice when I started this job and how great it was to have Senator Broxson in the position that he was in, and that it's a very common, regardless of other functional or dysfunctional things happening, at the state level, even in a normal setting, when you have the approach chair of the Senate and then you don't, sometimes you have to kind of sit back a year or two, because, and those were, certainly Senator Broxton was amazing to us and got so much done for us. Continues to be a mentor of mine. I was kind of warned on that right when I started this job, is that, you take the good with the bad. You have a couple good years, and then you have, then when you add the fuel of all of the stuff that you guys have been reporting on, happening, I certainly didn't. I didn't wake up with a shocked face or anything when I saw what happened in the budget.
I saw a picture of you at the mayor's conference sitting right next to Mayor Castor.
Uh-huh.
Any sideline conversations? I guess she's running again. She's getting ready to. Is that right?
Yeah. She was the host because of the event was in Tampa, and I think that's a perfect example. One great thing about going to the mayor's conferences, it doesn't really matter from a political party standpoint. There's only a few of you that kind of know what it's like, and it's nice to confide in folks about different issues. I told you I have mayor friends of mine call me about one issue they heard about us talk about, and then I call them about something, and certainly Jane's done a great job down there, and she's a friend of mine, and it's great to build those relationships, be on panels with all sorts of folks from all over the country, and so it's nice to be on a panel talking about something that we're doing in Pensacola, and then I'm taking notes while the next person is talking and saying, man, or I'm texting somebody on our staff and being like, have we thought about that yet?
Did you talk to her about this dark cloud hanging over the legislature on property tax? And
yeah, well,
the governor's desire to take all your TDC, your bed tax.
That's one thing, regardless. I'm a Republican, she's a Democrat. I can guarantee you it doesn't matter what party you are. If you're a mayor in the state of Florida and there's discussion about cutting property tax, again, I call it defund the police 2.0. And just go look at the budget. Look at how much money we spend in the general fund. Look how much money comes in from property tax, and how much we spend on police and fire. And so, we all agree on that. It doesn't matter what your political leanings are. And every city might have a different ratio of how much property tax is. You guys have heard me say a bunch of times, it's 34% of our general fund. So that this isn't just some nice to have. This is the functioning of this government is dependent upon that. I understand that we want to lower taxes. I understand the attraction of the logic to say, well, you never really own your house. There's lots of scenarios like that in our lives that you never really own. Whether do you ever really own your car when you pay car insurance on it, and that you have upkeep even when you pay it off? You don't. And if you don't have insurance, you aren't driving. So, there's lots of scenarios that can be spun into this, oh my gosh, you never really own your house. Well, that's the mechanism our state chose to be able to generate revenue for the operations of police and fire and government. If they just choose a 14% or 17% sales tax or whatever it has to be, then that would be the decision that I guess that they would make. But hopefully that we can get some logic and understanding that municipal governments are not. This isn't just fluff on top of a budget. This is the budget that we're talking about, and for us to do things functionally. And so I try to point that out at town halls, and every time when someone says, why don't you fix my sidewalk? I say, well, how do you plan on voting on property tax? Because if you're voting no on property tax, then we aren't going to fix the sidewalk because we won't have any money to do it. And I don't think people sometimes put those two things together, that it all sounds great to us to not pay property tax. That sounds great to me. If the proposal is, would the mayor like to pay or not pay property tax? Not paying property tax sounds great. But when you compare it that I might not get a police officer at my house for an hour because we don't have enough people, because we can't pay them, that might change my decision on whether I want to pay property tax or not. And so I think we're kind of hearing one side of the argument, and we may not be speaking as loudly about the other side of the argument, that quality matters and safety matters, and those things need funding to be able to do them. And so we'll see what happens. I guess it's moot for now, and we'll see what the conversation is, moving forward in the months ahead.
Mayor, anything new on the Pensacola Motor Lodge?
No, the direction we started to go is we were in conversations with Paces about buying it. And the reasoning for that was we've been holding on to it, and then we had entered into with Smith Hensey to allow them to apply for tax credits. They weren't able to get those, which was not surprising. They're very competitive, hard to get. But what we've talked about is if one of these firms wants to come buy it, we'll be in the same waiting game on them waiting on credits. That we may just sell it to them so we can kind of move on to our next project, but that sale is contingent upon it being affordable housing. We wouldn't sell it to them and they could do whatever they wanted with it. It would be either you put in affordable housing or it comes back to us type of thing. So we can accomplish both goals. We can kind of move on and get on to these other projects that we have, but earmark that property as we always have for affordable housing and allow them to just get going on it. There's really no reason at this point. We've saved it and we've earmarked it for that. We'll ensure that any effort of what happens at the Motor Lodge is going to be for a housing purpose, and then let somebody in the market that get one of those tax credits going and get it built. So nothing yet, but I think that's the direction we're going to go.
Mayor, last week I think John reported that the PPD had signed a 287G agreement with Homeland Security to participate in ICE task force. I just want to ask you. If you had a comment on that at all, your thoughts on that, or if you knew anything about that?
Yeah, we were made aware of it, and like many things, it was our effort to comply with state law. I mean, at the end of the day, so it wasn't that wasn't a commentary by the city or the police department one way or the other than we were asked. There's a state law to comply with, and we made the decision to comply with it.
Mayor, the word on the street was the meeting didn't go well with downtown business owners on the Palafox plan.
Depends on which meeting you went to.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, the meeting I had in this room on Monday
You
was
should have
full.
left town then.
Exactly. Trust me, I spent as much time on the phone after. I might as well have stayed. So no, I believe the meeting on Monday went great. It was full house in here. We talked about it for 90 minutes, all of the different things that we talked about. Listen, the reimagination of South Palafox is a heavy lift,
Right.
and there's going to be inconvenience. There's going to be construction. If there was a way that we could snap our fingers and magically have it done in 30 seconds, we certainly would entertain that idea. But to have something nice and good and a generational change, there's going to be some pain, and we certainly understand that, and I know the business owners understand that. So how do we make it the least painful we can? And so we laid out to them, many things. One, that we would have proactive marketing on our side that we'd invest in. Two, that we would make sections of parking free for that entire construction time, whether that's some of Jefferson Garage, whether it's the on-street on Jefferson. We laid out many of those kind of that we aren't just saying, hey, construction begins this day. Tough, so be it. We're not saying that. We understand that the lifeblood of Palafox and what makes it cool is these businesses that need to thrive and be successful. We explained to them that during however we decide to parse out the construction, the sidewalks will all remain open the entire time. So there's no closure of a block that you can't get to the front door, for example. The work might be going in the street, but it won't be blocking your door. So our goal, nowhere does bad information move faster sometimes than downtown, and
Well,
hence
I
the
waited to
reason
write about it till you were here.
Yeah, exactly. So hence the meeting. So the meeting on Wednesday, that we had a couple of folks, very longtime investors of the community, that didn't hear the Monday version and heard the Wednesday version when I wasn't there, that they took some offense to, and I hope to get everybody back landed at the same place. Here's what's important. The reason we had that meeting was for us to move forward, to even have the chance to move forward on Palafox reimagination, we have to go to RFP. So this is not hard and fast decisions, we're going to bring a shovel out there tomorrow. What are we telling a construction company that's going to bid on this? Are they working for 7 days a week? Are they working day and night? Are they working? So the goal of the meeting wasn't really even to be like, hey, we've got a bunch of big decisions to make that we can't come back from, but we got to put something on paper. And listen, Rick, we may put it on paper and it comes back at $35 million and we aren't doing it. So there's lots of still variables left to decide. I think the biggest one was around how would we phase in the construction of Palafox Street, right? And the big conversation we had on Monday was, and we'll probably alt bid this, so you can look at it both ways. But number one, we could start this fall. We, of course, are not going to do that. We wouldn't start till January 1st because of the holiday season. Give everybody plenty of time to, get acclimated to that. Give us plenty of time to get the word out and market it and everything else. So you can certainly report substantively, no matter what, no construction will begin until as close to January 2 of 2026 as possible. So I shared that with them. But I think the thing that will be interesting coming back is, I call it the Band-Aid approach, which is take from Vinyl to Main Street and start on January 1st, 5 blocks, 5 months-ish, we hope. We'll see what the RFP says. Do we do it that way? Pull the Band-Aid. January, February is already slow kind of for everybody, and then that's 2 of those 4 or 5 months that you would rather be closed or have that inconvenience, I guess. Or is the other option to go block by block? Well, you guys can do the math on that. If we go block by block, and we think block by block might be 14 weeks apiece, well, now you're talking about construction on Palafox for well over a year. And then if we find, I don't know, a Spanish soldier or something under Government Street, and we're working on that one block, we got another 10 weeks. If we're doing the entire thing, we can move around. And so it gives the contractor more flexibility. It gives the contractor, we can move faster, we think, overall. So those decisions aren't being made finally, but we've got to go to RFP with something. So I expect we'll go to RFP saying, show us the Band-Aid approach, and then you tell us, contractor, alt bid it if you think phasing it makes more sense. So it was just merely to brief our downtown folks on this is the direction we're going and do the best that we can, which I still haven't figured out exactly how to do, Rick, but the best we can to not have someone read an RFP and say, oh my gosh, the mayor didn't tell us anything, or they've made all these decisions. We really haven't. We got to get something going though. And so I honestly thought, at least the one I was at, I felt was pretty well received, and I've just got some cleanup conversation to have with the folks on Wednesday, and I've already had one of those. I need to have one more. So,
Mayor, real quick, the project on Main Street started yesterday. So,
yes.
What's the process now?
Yeah, well, I get to see it every day because I drive here and there. So, yeah, traffic is up on Government and Zaragoza, but started on time. We do have some. I know we had a 1-week delay at 12th and Fairfield. I know that was supposed to start last week. Start on the 14th, but we think it'll be 10 weeks. All the information we had from before is still accurate. Government Street is the detour because it can take a few more cars. So certainly appreciate everybody's patience with that. But I think it is a very worthwhile to have that type of impact on 1,600 houses in the city is certainly worth doing. And so I know I'll be personally ready for them to be done with that closure as fast as they can. So no citizen has to worry about my concern about how quick that takes, because I drive that about 5-6 times a day. So anyway, but it should be going on schedule as expected.
And STS Engineering topped.
Yes.
Last week, I think.
Yeah, and that's moving real quick, honestly, which doesn't always happen in construction. It's moving. Hangar 3 is moving even faster than I was expecting, so that's a good thing. But yeah, I haven't been out to see it yet. I was out of town when that happened, but it did. Anything else? All right, thanks, guys.
Mayor, have you reviewed